This conference will now be recorded.
Well, good morning, everyone. I want to thank you for participating in our, I believe, 21st COVID-19 conference call. For those of you that don't know who I am, I'm Wayne Mitchell. I'm the president and CEO of the Nacogdoches County Chamber of Commerce. I would like to remind you folks that we're recording this call, as you heard a moment ago, and that we've also invited members of the media to join us today. So we welcome them as well. I'd respectfully ask if you put your phones or computers on mute until we're ready for the question segment of our program here today, and that would be very helpful. Before we begin, I just want to comment in my unscientific view of the latest trends here in Nacogdoches. It appears that we're making some progress in addressing the concerns from COVID-19. Certainly, hospitalizations appear to be declining, and a number of cases seem to be in recent days, and so that's certainly encouraging to all of us, and hopefully we can continue this trend by practicing, continuing to practice distance, the mask requirements and social distancing. I'd also like to take a moment too and thank Stacy Hodges for helping us. I see we have several members of the manufacturing community on this call to hear Mr. Bennett, and that probably wouldn't have been possible had it not been for Stacy's efforts in getting the word out. So thank you very much, Stacy, for your efforts and in contacting the members of the association. We'll begin with our first presenter this morning. I don't believe, I knew that she had a conflict this morning, and that Larissa Philpott is on the line right now. Larissa, are you with us? I don't think so. So there we go. I will have the honor of introducing our featured speaker this morning. Tony Bennett is president and CEO of the Texas Association of Manufacturers, better known as NAM, TAM, T-A-M, Austin-based industry trade association representing over 600 member companies, including more than 70 of the state's largest employers. He joined TAM as president in 2012, following a 33-year career with Temple Inland Incorporated, the former forest products and financial services company. Mr. Bennett retired from Temple Inland as vice president of government relations, where he directed local, state, and federal government relations in multiple U.S. states and in Washington, D.C. In 2005, Mr. Bennett was the founding chairman of the Texas Association of Manufacturers. Reviving the trade group after more than 30 years hiatus, he holds both a BS and MS degree in forest management with a business emphasis from Stephen F. Austin State University. So I see Dr. Gordon's online. Again, Axum Jackson, we're certainly delighted to hear that. Mr. Bennett has served in various leadership positions on several state and national boards and committees, including the National Association of Manufacturers, the American Forest and Paper Association, the Texas Association of Business, and the Texas Taxpayers and Research Association. He currently serves on the Texas Student Success Council, an effort to educate Texas, and is a former board member of the Capital Area Council Boy Scouts of America. It is an honor to introduce you folks to Mr. Tony Bennett. Welcome, Tony, back to Nacogdoches.
Thank you, Wayne. I see a lot of old friends. I see names anyway and a few faces, and it's great to be with y'all this morning. With all the chaos over here in Austin, I'm ready to move back to Nacogdoches, believe me. So I'll talk a little bit about what's been going on in the COVID world as far as Texas manufacturing. I'm sure a lot of the manufacturers in the chamber have experienced similar things, and maybe you'll recognize some of the stuff we're talking about this morning. But, you know, Texas has a resilient, large economy, 10th largest economy in the world at $1.8 trillion. So like we're larger than Russia, Canada, Mexico, Australia. And Texas remains our nation's #1 exporting state for manufactured goods. Every manufacturing job that we can create, will yield another 3.8 jobs on average. In some of our industries like petrochemical, that factor can go up as high as 9 or 10 additional jobs. So since mid-March through much of April, TAM has been working 10, 12-hour days, 7 days a week, fielding one challenge after another to keep our manufacturing plants open. As Wayne said, we have 600 member companies. That includes 70 of the state's largest employers, and that spans over 22 different major industry sectors. So depending on what sector you're talking about, and we'll dive into those in a minute, they all had their own set of interesting and challenging problems the last few months. We've had numerous Zoom conferences with the governor's staff. We've had legislators, congressmen, the Mexican and U.S. consulates, and dealing with Mexico. We can talk about that a little bit. Just about everybody you can think of has had a challenge for us, and so far so good. The intensity of some of these communications really paralleled what we would experience during a legislative session. And, we can't wait to get back to normal. I'm sure all of y'all are in the same boat. We're all awaiting that vaccine that hopefully will be here, at the end of the year or maybe at the first of next year. But let's go talk a little bit about each industry sector. Some of those y'all have got plants in Nacogdoches and Lufkin, and some of the plants or some of the sectors that we're going to talk about may have tier 1, tier 2 suppliers in your region. So in some ways you're affected. The first one I want to mention is automotive. Despite most of the TAM industries being declared essential and continuing to operate during the COVID pandemic, the automotive sector decided to shut down in March and most of April, primarily because demand just plummeted, and the component supplier issues, where they get all the parts to put a car together, there was a lot of breakdown. And Mexico was one of those major supply breakdowns. They did begin to ramp back up in June, but our automakers are telling us that that continues to be slowed by high absenteeism, obviously due to COVID. It could be in their family. It could be that they have to quarantine because they've been exposed. This is still causing quite a bit of disruption, and their suppliers are going through the same thing. It's interesting, though, that trucks and large SUVs are a super hot item right now, and they're in record demand, and that's what people are wanting. And so those plants are trying to do all they can to get back up to pre-pandemic level in meeting that demand. The aerospace defense industry, the Lockheed Martins, the Boeings, the Bell helicopters, the Raytheons. We have a lot of those industries in the state of Texas. Lockheed has a plant in Lufkin. There may be some suppliers in the Nacogdoches region that are making component parts. That industry sector has generally remained very steady through COVID. That's due to the Department of Defense keep cranking out large contracts. They're in pretty good shape. We're also getting a lot of allied nation purchases, from around the world that are allowed to buy U.S. manufactured aircraft and missile systems, et cetera. And the Lufkin plant that Lockheed has is a missile component plant. So that's good for Lufkin and hopefully good for the region. Technology and semiconductor industry, they're doing very well. Strong demand due to massive shift that we're all seeing. Most of us, are working from home most of the time. And the That has caused record demand for everything electronic, everything computer, everything related to that. All of the periphery that you have for a home office is in major demand. A lot of automotive manufacturers and all things internet are stockpiling semiconductor chips for fear that there might be further disruptions due to the pandemic or due to some other unforeseen circumstance. So the Texas semiconductor industries like Texas Instruments, Samsung, et cetera, are cranking out chips as fast as they can, and the demand is very good. Petrochemical and refining, personal protective equipment. A lot of that is plastics and polymers of some kind. You've got chlorine and other disinfectants, the chemicals used to make hand sanitizers, and all the things that you can think of in that realm. Also, very strong demand for food packaging plastics. You've got durable goods that use a lot of plastics. Again, back to automobiles. Think of all the plastic and polymer type goods that are in an automobile. Everything has got some sort of a plastic or related product from the petrochemical industry. So they're staying fairly busy. The durable goods orders, items like appliances, building products, doors, windows, the building products industry, including your lumber and wood panel plants there in Nacogdoches, are seeing very pent up consumer demand. They were down for a little while. Now it's back up. Record prices for lumber, record prices for OSB and other panel products. Right now, the getting is very good there. The new sawmill that opened up in Lufkin should be seeing some pretty good times. So COVID-related plant production slowdowns, though, are putting a lot of the shipments into the Lowe's and the Home Depots and the other lumber yards way behind. If you order a refrigerator today, you're probably looking at a few weeks before you receive that durable good. All of this is COVID related. Fuel refineries. We have a lot of refiners at TAM, the Valeros, the Exxon Mobils, Phillips 66, Marathon, et cetera. They went through very, very tough times. The last couple of months, 3 months, have been severely tough. Thankfully, transport fuels, folks are starting to drive again. They're not flying much, so the summer vacation, predominantly for most of us, have been or will be a road trip. There's very little flying. Flying is down still 50 to 70%, depending on where you are. So aviation fuels are way down, but diesel fuel is doing well because obviously that's the trucking industry, and they really didn't have much of a slowdown. In fact, you may have seen in the media, truckers have been as busy as they've ever been, moving goods around the country as the shift to home life occurred. So the refineries, if anything, they're waiting for aviation fuel and just a general economic recovery before they're fully back in pre-pandemic levels. Oil and gas production, the Permian, the Eagle Ford, the oil fields of Texas, they produce 40% of the nation's crude oil. The Permian and the Eagle Ford rig counts fell by 60 to 70%. That's almost unprecedented. I don't know when it was ever that bad. There's only 138 rigs operating today. That's down from, I think, in the 300 and 400 or more rigs that were operating just maybe 6 months ago. So, there's only about 162,000 workers in the oil patch in Texas working today, down from a high of 297,000 workers 5 years ago. The current oil price is $42 a barrel. just barely enough, for some of the oil fields that shut down during the pandemic-driven price collapse to start back up again, for them to open up the valves and flow the oil. And of course, that oil goes to Corpus Christi for export. It goes to the petrochemical belt along our Texas Gulf Coast, where all of the plastics are made, for ketchup bottles to automobile parts to the hand sanitizers that we talked about. The reopening of the wells signal now that, the worst is probably over as far as the oil executives are concerned. And hopefully the recovery is underway. But, they are they are hamstrung by market prices. World market prices, that is. So OPEC and all of that will continue to hamper a full price recovery for Texas oil. So I mentioned Mexico, and we spent a lot of time trying to get Mexico back up and running as far as the tier 1 and tier 2 suppliers that make component parts for our Texas industries. And we spoke with our, public officials here. We spoke with the Mexican embassy and worked with the National Association of Manufacturers. Mexico has a severe COVID outbreak. It's still going on. It's worse in some Mexican states than others, but it's bad enough to where they literally shut their plants down for 3 to 4 months. And we never shut down, for example, our U.S. and Texas plants, with the exception of a few, like we talked about automotive. But these are the component suppliers that furnish parts to Bell Helicopter, to Toyota, to General Motors. Those are the plants in San Antonio and the Dallas-Fort Worth area. The Houston area has a lot of manufacturing that depends on the Mexican maquiladoras and some of the interior component plants. So that is a problem that we're concerned with. We suspect that you might see some logistics change and some of those supplier plants to move across the border, and that would not be a bad thing for the U.S. economy. So many of our TAM member companies had to shift during the pandemic, to make everything from ventilators to hand sanitizers to PPE. Our pharmaceutical manufacturing members donated treatment drugs for COVID. They're working feverishly on vaccines. We're real optimistic, and we have our board meeting tomorrow. We're going to hear a report about the vaccine situation from one of our major pharmaceutical manufacturers. So, we're all looking forward to full recovery. Recent studies are showing that 50% of the domestic manufacturers today are likely going to bring production and sourcing back to North America, and hopefully that means Texas. So I think for the Nacogdoches Chamber and for Texas, generally speaking, that's going to be an opportunity for us to be ready to bring in these manufacturing suppliers or what have you that want to reshore back to the U.S. And we need to be ready. TAM's going to be working on the Chapter 313 tax abatement reauthorization, which is it's our number one economic development tool to attract, the Toyotas and the Samsungs and the Teslas and the big projects that spin off all of the satellite plants that we all enjoy and bring in all of the job multiples that we talked about. So these big host plants, they might get a tax abatement of 50 to 80% for 10 years, but what they bring with them in the way of the suppliers and whatnot. I think there were 7 different companies that followed the Toyota truck plant in San Antonio, for example. example. And we expect the same phenomenon here with the Tesla plant located in Austin, and Samsung brought applied materials to Austin, et cetera. Things have a tendency to multiply, and that's what we want them to do. So I'll stop there, Wayne. I don't know how much time we've got, but I'd be happy to answer any questions and appreciate the opportunity to be with you.
Well, thank you very much, Tony. That was a great overview, and what I loved about it was a lot of optimism for hopefully our near future here. So I'll start off with the first question, Tony. How concerned are your members about having some degree of liability protection as it relates to COVID?
We are concerned. We have what we call the COVID recovery legislative agenda, which includes, I mentioned 313, COVID liability and workers' comp reform. We expect those to be a hot ticket along with tax abatement. And then we have some regulatory state agency issues that will be. So we are working with the Texas Civil Justice League. We're working with Texans for Lawsuit Reform and the National Association of Manufacturers on COVID liability.
Great. Questions from participants?
Wayne, this is Donna. I'll ask one of my old neighbor who lived just about 3 down from me. I'm sorry, my camera is not working. Isn't that ironic for a TV reporter? But
yeah.
Hey, I wanted to ask maybe something specific that just kind of popped into my mind just a couple of seconds ago. We've got a lot of school districts waiting anxiously for thousands of computers and laptops for their students. And they're telling us that it's going to take, quite a bit of time. Do you have any insight on, are the manufacturers doing anything to try to speed those deliveries up?
Donna, they are working as fast as they can, at least the members that, we deal with. We have a number of the computer and related component manufacturers in TAM. It has a lot to do, once again, with logistics, the supply chain, the COVID interruptions, the absenteeism at the plant, the disruption of getting raw materials and components from point A to point B around the world. And we're seeing it in every industry sector we have. It is going to be delay of game due to COVID and all things related to that. And I wish I had, better news, but until we get back to normal, I think you're going to see the disruption story continue.
Tony, thanks for your presentation. My question is this, as you know, I-69 is being built and heading just outside of town here. And here in East Texas, we do have pretty reasonable real estate. And how attractive do you think this region is to some of those manufacturers that will be reshoring?
I think extremely attractive. And, I think it's East Texas' turn to benefit from the Houston effect. I think you will, you've got major manufacturing and exporting out of the ports in Houston and Beaumont. And I think the towns that surround within an hour and a half to 2 hours of the Texas Gulf Coast, if they're prepared with their workforce and the workforce is trained, and with SFA and Angelina College and the other community colleges that know what to do in this regard, when they understand that the workforce is there and the real estate is inexpensive and the proximity to markets and customers and exporting and you know, the proximity in the middle of the United States, the #1 economy in the world. There's just so many things going for that part of Texas. I think it is your turn to benefit from this. And a lot of these suppliers that are in Mexico, maybe that's who you target, that work for some of the big manufacturers that depend on these component parts, because these disruptions are devastating. When you have to shutter a plant that employs several thousand people in the metroplex, that is not a good thing.
Thank you, Tony. Any other questions?
Yes, Tony, this is Claire Robbins, the chairman of the board here with the chamber, and I also am the market manager with Manpower. Something that we experienced when the stimulus, the additional $600 a week was announced, and it continued throughout the time that everyone was receiving the 600. We were having difficulty with getting people interested in going to work because we heard the phrase, you know, I'm making more money at home, staying home. Can you tell us how that affected manufacturing across the state, not just in our region, but across the state?
We heard the exact same thing, and it was a nationwide problem. I think the Trump administration has recognized that. I think the opposition to the Trump administration doesn't have a problem with it. So I'm not sure how ultimately it will be resolved. You know, with our manufacturers, our big manufacturers, we didn't see or hear a lot of complaints about that, because fortunately, once we convinced the federal and state government that we could operate safely with the COVID protocols, we kept going, and our workers, for the most part, didn't want to lose their jobs. There's so many benefits tied. So it's a matter of what kind of job you were talking about there. If it were restaurant workers and the like, and I went to college, I was a restaurant worker in Nacogdoches, you know, that's different. But you've got for our manufacturers, it was not a major problem, but we totally get what the situation is. Hopefully, we've learned our lesson there.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you,
Other
Tony.
questions? Other questions? If not, Tony, I want to thank you again for being a part of our featured speaker today, and I want to let you know you're certainly welcome to stay on the call. It's going to be interesting to hear the reports from our stakeholders and partners around, but we really appreciate the great work you're doing with the Texas Association of Manufacturers, and it's great to have you back home, and I'm confident that if you choose to come back to Nacogdoches, that a number of realtors on this call can find you a suitable location. So there you go. Great to have you with us. I'm pleased now to introduce the president of Stephen F. Austin State University. You've heard from him briefly, but would you folks say good morning to Dr. Scott Gordon? Good morning, President Gordon.
Good morning. I hope everybody is doing well. Tony, I loved your presentation. We'll have to sit down and talk sometime because we have a lot of interesting things brewing, but I'll go on to SFA, and you know that saying, we're back. Well, we're back, and you probably have noticed it on North Street. It's a welcome sight. It's awesome. I love it. I don't mind waiting at a light or a stop sign for 10 minutes because I know what it means to this community. But over the last 4 days or so, we have had about 2,000 students move into our residence halls, and we have several hundred more that will be moving in throughout the rest of this week. As you may know, classes start on the 24th, and so we're excited. We're seemingly getting back to some level of normalcy with the energy on campus. We are watching various data points very carefully. We're calling these our trigger points. And then we also have a operational status level. And right now we're operating at a status level we're determining as status level 3. Our campus buildings are open, residence halls and dining facilities are open. We are practicing physical distancing, and face coverings are required anywhere on campus. And we have a reduced density in our face-to-face courses, and there are some campus facility usage restrictions in place. But we're working to develop a multi-status system, and we'll be monitoring various trigger points. We'll be looking at whether or not there's any kind of government action, like a statewide lockdown or local lockdown order. We'll be looking at any sustained or significant increases in hospital admissions, because we're in communication with our hospitals, and we don't want to get our hospitals into a state of being overwhelmed. We're also looking at some campus-based criteria, primarily significant absenteeism of employees. We're looking at significant positive test results for any population, so any clusters that we may find around buildings, around departments, around various student groups. We also are really looking at, if we do need to utilize our self-isolation areas, if we start seeing an increase in those. So we're really looking, and we're doing this every single day. We're getting reports from a variety of entities to put together kind of this dashboard. So we'll be monitoring it, and we'll be letting campus know, we'll be letting the community know, and we hope that things will go as smoothly as what we expect them to go. And many of you probably have seen University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill had a hiccup and decided to send all their students home. We really are hoping that as we continue to educate our students on proper health and safety protocols, they will be respectful of that. I know that last night we had Jack Camp, and part of that Jack Camp was a kind of a treasure hunt, an adventure race, and they stopped by my house to where it was kind of like Halloween, where we gave out some candy at a socially distant manner, and to a T, every single student was wearing a face mask. So let's hope that continues and we don't have any problems, but we're excited. Our enrollment continues to be pretty stable as compared to last year, which again, in higher education, flat is the new up. And so we're very happy with that. And if you know anybody who wants to enroll and continue their education, send them our way. We'll be happy to get them signed up. And that's it. And I'll take any questions.
Questions for Dr. Gordon? If not, thank you very much, Dr. Gordon. We really appreciate your update this morning. Representing Governor Greg Abbott, would you please welcome with me his regional representative, Betty Rousseau. Good morning, Betty.
It'd help if I unmuted, right?
There you go. You're fine now.
Sorry about that. Tony, it was great to hear from you. Great presentation. Thank you. The governor has been, this last week, has focused on more regional and point-specific travel and visits. So there weren't really many announcements from him this week pertaining to the entire state. But I have a couple other things regarding to economic development. There's some free technical assistance available for brownfields. It's a free site reuse planning and visioning service and site inventory and prioritization assistance to local governments that don't have the resources to get this done. Then there's the EPA brownfield grants available for cleaning up brownfields in your community. That's another one that's out there. The General Land Office Community Development Block Grants Mitigation. The GLO program will provide funds for cities, counties, Indian tribes, and councils of governments to address risks in HUD and state designated most impacted and distressed areas. So if y'all want more information on any of those, let me know. One more thing, just wanted to remind you of the Governor's Small Business webinar series event coming up tomorrow. It's a virtual mentorship session, and this time it is starting a business in Texas. They're planning on some really good speakers at that. It's tomorrow from 1 to 2. And let me know if you're interested in that. And besides that, that's all I have. If you have any questions, just let me know.
Any questions of Betty? Betty, that small business series that the governor's office has been promoting is outstanding. And those of you that haven't had a chance to monitor one of those, I'd respectfully suggest you consider it. It's really good information. So thank you, Betty.
Thank you. There are 2 more coming up in September, and I don't have the information on those yet, but I'll share them with you over the next upcoming weeks.
We appreciate that, Betty, very much. I do not think that, I know that Senator Nichols had a conflict this morning. He and I chatted yesterday afternoon. Is Representative Clardy on the call? I don't see him. If not, if neither Representative Clardy or Senator Nichols is on a call, we'll move on. Would you please welcome me, the President and CEO of the Texas Forest Country Partnership, my friend Nancy Wyndham. Good morning, Nancy.
Good morning. Sorry, I didn't know I was on the agenda, but this is a great time to talk and support. Tony, thank you so much. We are working diligently and focusing on getting sites and buildings, all of our 12 counties up to speed on either the I-69 corridor or the inshoring. We want to be ready, not just ready, but we want to be above the curve on marketing our 12 county region out to those companies that are looking to expand and relocate. So that's our focus right now. It has been very helpful to be involved. I know the Workforce Solutions Group, Mark is on the call. The weekly calls for each of the counties, I would encourage everybody, even though that you don't live in that county, it gives you a better perspective and an understanding of our neighbors and our family here in the Forest Country region. So we want to be a bigger, stronger, better voice. Tony, for your group and all the other agencies, as we work toward the legislative session, I know it's a new day and we're doing things differently, but we really want to be an impactful voice about what we have, our great assets here. The challenges is I think some folks, including myself, are kind of stuck in yesterday and waking up every morning and knowing it is a new day and we need to be open to new ways. Very proud of this call, the people that participate. It gives us a boost every week. Thank you for those that work really hard to get this organized. So I would just say each day, all of our 12 counties are working toward to do things better and different. We rely on the information and support, Wayne, those consultation calls that I receive from you and your staff help us move forward in a better and stronger way in each and every market segment that we have. Thanks to the manufacturers, Stacy, for getting this group together. It is going to make a difference with our schools and educating our workforce. So that's about it. Just remember where we are, and we're here to help and support in any way. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. And this one of the things that I love the most about this region of East Texas, including our friends in Angelina County, is the willingness of all of us to work together for a common purpose. It's to be honest with you, I worked this country pretty thoroughly in my previous professional life, and it doesn't exist everywhere, but it certainly does here. And I think it certainly helps us accomplish our goals when we have such a good team to work together. So thank you, Nancy. I believe Dr. Mahaffey and Larissa are in a staff meeting right now. I don't think they're online right now. I just want to verify that I'm correct on that. I see on the phone we have Caroline Garner, and I don't know if Gary Lee's still on or not. Caroline, you want to give us an update on? Oh, I see Gary Lee. There he is. There's his handsome face. Gary Lee.
Thank you for that handsome part. I like that. Caroline is in the other office. Caroline, if you hear me and want to pipe in, go ahead. We'll both be brief. We had our kickoff this morning at Rex Perry Motors Autoplex. Thousands of people were on the Zoom and Facebook Live. We plan to. There weren't thousands, but there were plenty. But we plan to put that on Facebook. Well, we have Facebook, and try to social media it as best we can. So if you missed it, you'll have an opportunity to see it. Art Rodriguez, Rex was out of town. He did a great job of representing Rex Perry. The car, Minnie Pearl is her name. She's Pearl White, and she is sitting, thank you, Wayne Mitchell, in front of the Chamber of Commerce, and we'll be there till Friday. Kelly, I see your smiling face. Kelly made this happen. Sherry Morgan made this happen. We had a good time. Now we're going to have a good time campaigning. We already got campaigns wanting to rock and roll. E-Tech's getting it going. So if you're interested in participating, if you're a team member with a company, please support your United Way. Live United. Goodbye. Y'all have a good day and a good week.
Gary Lee, thank you, and thank you and Caroline for all the great work you folks are doing for that very important initiative in Nacogdoches. And needless to say, we're all rooting for you. Well, I'm pleased to introduce the Communications Director for the Nacogdoches Independent School District. Good morning, Les Linebarger.
Good morning, Wayne. It's good to see you. It's good to see everyone. We're 13 days away from the start of class for Nacogdoches ISD, and online registration continues for NISD students. This is an entirely new process that we took up last year, well before there were concerns about any pandemic or anything like it. And our staff had began working on this almost a year ago to get everything up to speed so we could register students online and join the 21st century. So far, we've had roughly 80% of our returning students complete the online registration process. And like I said, we're about 2 weeks away from the start of class. Now, in previous years, the registration process, which many of you may remember filling out what seemed like reams of paperwork, that registration process sometimes would extend past the start of school. It wasn't quite so pressing that we have everything done a few days before the first day of class. That has changed, and mainly because of what we're living with now. This year is different, so we need to know what parent intentions are as far as whether they're going to send their child for in-person classes or they're wanting to conduct their classes virtually. So that one of the questions that are asked as part of the online registration process answers that or provides us with that response there. So we have a fairly good idea of how many folks will want those in-person classes. So I encourage anyone that has school-age children and you're still waiting to complete that online registration process, please go ahead and do that. You can go to the district's website at nacisd.org, and the main link in the middle of the page will lead you to the registration page, or you can go to the district's Facebook account and find a link to registration as well. It's all part of this new world we live in here for the foreseeable future here at Nacogdoches ISD and school districts across the state and the nation. Wayne, thank you for your time.
Well, thanks again for all your efforts and the superintendent's efforts, Les. I realize you guys are navigating new waters, and everybody's rooting for you.
Thank you.
We've got a few minutes here. Does anybody have any announcements that they'd like to make that are not on the agenda here today? Just want to double check with everybody. Well, first of all, I want to thank everybody for participating, especially Tony Bennett from the Texas Association of Manufacturers for his outstanding presentation today. Remember that this call will be recorded and will be on YouTube later this afternoon. For those of you, I thank our media partners for being here with us and the many manufacturers that joined us here on the call today. We appreciate your involvement with us. Stacy Hodges, you did a great job in mobilizing the folks, and I can't thank you enough for what you've done to help us out here today. Want to remind you that Exit Issues will be a week from Thursday, and that will feature our brand new city manager, Mario Canizares. And it will be both a live and virtual presentation. If you can't make it to the Fredonia or you're reluctant to be there, you can certainly go to GoToMeeting, which will be posting that contact information. I will assure you that we will be practicing very strict social distancing guidelines and doing everything we can to maximize our protection during that event. I also want to let you know that next week's conference call will feature our own Senator Ted Cruz, talking all things COVID on the federal level. I can promise you that Senator Cruz will have some interesting things to say, and I hope you'll join us being prepared to ask Senator Cruz any questions. I'm going to dedicate a bit more time to Senator Cruz next week because I anticipate that especially from the financial community, there are going to be a lot of questions. Any comments? If not, folks, I wish you a successful and happy and safe day, and we thank everybody for joining us today, and have a great end of week. Bye-bye.